Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on?
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, episode number 51, May 19th, 2021. After a little break, a little time off, little break or vacation didn't hurt anybody. So,
No,
but
never.
We're back. We are back, like Sam Ellinger proclaimed the Sugar Bowl.
We're back.
We are back.
Except we are actually back in Texas. No,
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's the natural cycle of things,
Yeah.
But we'll save that. We'll get into that stuff later. Jay, what's going on?
Good week. Well, I guess a good week of sports to talk about. Not a good week for weather right now. We're getting rained on pretty hard here, so everybody stay safe. Thanks for tuning in. If you're getting rained on real hard, hopefully just put on the Bacon and Egg Show and forget about everything else going on. And yeah, good to have you guys. Thanks for listening. Kerry, you good?
I'm doing great. I can't complain. Yeah, where do you want to start this week? I know we were kind of discussing what we were going to do with the cup of coffee, and I think we can kick this off with a little revival of Pandemic Weekly.
Bring it back. Yes.
Some of the longtime listeners remember one of our earlier segments of pandemic coverage. But yeah, I just it's been interesting. So since the last time we had our show, it seems like on a nearly every other day kind of basis, we keep hearing more and more about stadiums and events and all these things that are returning or announcing that they're going to be returning to 100% capacity. I know Chris Del Conte has announced that Texas football plans on being at 100% capacity in the fall. The Astros just the other day announced that their next homestand, when that starts, they're going to be returning to 100% capacity and no masks if you're vaccinated within the stadium. So, and then the list just continues. NCAA announcing that postseason baseball sites, given local, regulations, will be able to go to 100% capacity as well. And yeah, it kind of felt like I don't know. This feels like an interesting time to kind of discuss this kind of development in this. Jay, how do you feel about this? I mean, we're going on, we just had our year anniversary show a few weeks ago. Here we are a year on, over a year now into this, pandemic. But how do you feel about all this? What's your kind of gut feeling or your initial thought when you hear about these stadiums going to 100%?
When we were talking before coming on today, we were discussing how different the show looks now compared to when we started over a year ago, and sort of the predictions that we thought, like what would sports look like a year from now? What would sports look like 5 years from now? And I think it's becoming a lot more back to normal than I definitely anticipated it would this quickly. I think with the numbers of people that are being vaccinated, I think with the number of people that are still following precautions and taking care of themselves like they're being asked to do, for me, I'm not as against this sort of full capacity idea as I thought I would be at this time. I'm sort of more to the point where I'm like, okay, if people are continuing to get vaccinated and are continuing to follow whatever precautions they feel like make them safe, I'm in the camp now where by the time we get to September, the beginning of September, and as long as there's not some spike in numbers of COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations, I think that I think that this is going to be like it's what needs to happen, in my opinion. To be honest, I think we need to get back to this, and people are starting to take care of themselves, like I said. So that's sort of where I am, which is to be quite honest, is way farther down the road than I thought that I would feel at this time, being a year out from, like you said, when we started the show. So how are you feeling about this? Where are your sort of, what's your take on these 100% capacity guidelines?
Yeah, I think we're probably on the same, probably share a lot of the same thoughts on this, same feelings. I mean, for one, I kind of feel like this entire pandemic, this whole thing has been such a time warp that it only kind of feels like, even though it's been well over a year, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago when everything shut down, when this whole thing kicked off. So to think about it, it's like, oh, well, is it really ready? Are we really ready? Is it really time to start opening, going to 100%, all those kinds of things? And like, we, you almost kind of have to take a step back and look at the time frame of it and go like, oh, well, yeah, maybe it is time to start thinking about what the post COVID-19 world is going to look like, because we're heading there. Like, that's where things are going. Like, and no matter how this thing would have played out, there was going to be an after, to quote Drew Magary on this. Like, there was going to be the after. And did the after, is it approaching us quicker than maybe we thought? Perhaps. But like you said, the vaccination rates, especially around here in Austin, and I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I just went through, airports for the first time since this pandemic started this past week, and airport traffic ABIA was very, very busy. I mean, not like South by Southwest or like ACL busy, but really busy. And it was like back to, I mean, with the exception of everybody wearing a mask, you wouldn't know any different about, like, if you had been frozen in a block of ice since February of last year and thawed out and went to the airport, you wouldn't know any different this past week. And I think we have enough evidence to show that outdoor sporting events and these kinds of things, like, we're there. I think we're there. And I get trepidation. I get people being, including us, kind of being like, well, is this quite ready? Or we, the kind of analogy I keep going back to is like, at some point, whether it's as an individual or collectively, there's going to be that pushing the boat away from the dock moment. And it might be uncomfortable. It might feel weird and all those, all those different feelings, but like, we got to get there at some point, right? We have to push away from the dock at some point. And whether that, like, so I don't know. On one hand, it's exciting, but I'm also, there's also a bit of cautiousness to this.
I agree 100%. It's, you just have to almost like, I went out the other night with Mike and a couple of the other guys, and it's the first time that I'd really done that since the pandemic started. And it's just, it's that feeling of, okay, I'm vaccinated now. I've done my part. Now, as long as I'm not, I'm not in people's faces, right. I'm not, sharing drinks. I'm not, we're not, you keep to yourself. The science has shown now that we know a lot more now about how this is
right
transmitted from one person to the other than we did even 4 or 5 months ago, 3 months ago. So I'm just sort of like, yeah, it's like you said, that's a really good way of putting it. It's like pushing the boat away from the dock moment. And if you're not comfortable with it, then, I'm not saying that I don't know that I'm necessarily ready to go to the game, I guess, but I understand why people would be ready to go to the game, and why it would be an sort of a thing like, yep, we're going to load the stadium back up at this point, because people have to be able to be trusted with their health, and we're just going back to being considerate of others and things like that. And it's just it is. There's some in between here. There's one of those things. I love to live in in a black and white, this or that sort of a world, and there's just so much gray area with this that I feel like you can feel comfortable going out and doing things, but maybe I'm not quite there yet for 100,000 people to DKR. I don't know, but maybe by September I will be. And that's sort of why I'm feeling like, in my mind, by September, I'm going to be ready. And maybe that's my justification for feeling this way. But I just feel like with what we know about the science, like you said, about outdoor sporting events, especially, even in large crowds, if I'm vaccinated, I feel like I'm going to go. I'm good to go, and I'm going to trust that other people are taking care of themselves as well. So it's so weird. It's just there's a lot of gray area here, and I understand why people would feel strongly about maybe not opening up. But I think I'm to that point, Kerry, where I understand it, and I'm not going to argue against it.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it with the kind of personal responsibility aspect of it. We've kind of reached this point now where, just kind of speaking for myself, like, I'm really struggling to think of anybody that I know like closely that hasn't been vaccinated at this point. It's open. Anybody can go get it now. And if you opt to not do that, well, then that's kind of on you at this point to not, you make your own decision, but
right.
That's that kind of thing. It's kind of like, all right, well, myself and the people that are close to me, friends, family, all those things, like, well, if we want to go to a game, well, we've done what we've needed to do to feel at ease and comfortable with doing that kind of thing. So
Yep.
yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, it's interesting. I see these highlights of like the NHL playoffs that kicked off this week, and like seeing people back in the stadiums and like the environment of playoff hockey with a crowd in the building, thinking back to what we saw just last year with, the two bubbles that the NHL set up in Canada, and that just bizarre scene of like the Dallas Stars playing Tampa Bay in the Stanley Cup final and nobody in the stands.
Yeah.
Like, to go from that to now seeing like the crowd in Vegas, that environment that they have there, like all that stuff, you can kind of go like, we're getting towards the end of this thing, hopefully. And, unless there's any curveballs, but it's just, I don't know. It was just something about with all these announcements this week. It was kind of like, wow, this is something we hadn't really hit on in a while. It kind of became like background noise in a way, at least for the sports world. Like, we got so used to this kind of pandemic situation with sports. So here we are. It's I don't know. We'll see if we have any of this. Who knows? This might be our last pandemic weekly segment after bringing it back, which I'm not going to complain about that, but
right. Yeah, no doubt about it. It's just a fascinating conversation, and the fact, I think when you called it background noise, I think that was it sort of has become that background noise to what sports has become. And I feel like that's why, we just got used to it, the normalcy of having an empty NBA arena or just fans here or there, or having that entire lower level blocked off and just having the screens there and stuff like that. Like it's not an issue to watch that for me. It wasn't an issue to watch empty soccer stadiums. It wasn't an issue for any of that. So now when we're talking about getting back to normal, it's not an issue, because I'm already feeling like, oh, well, I already felt comfortable in terms of my viewing experience. And now it's like, okay, yeah, now we're going to get back to it. They just sort of natural. It feels very natural to shift back to having fans in the stands. It just feels like for me, it feels like it was never even a thing. It's felt like it's. So I think that's props to the leagues for taking care of this the way that they have, and actually figuring out a way to put out a product that when you do get back to it, it just feels like it was nothing was ever different. So, They get paid a lot of money to come up with to do
Right,
things like that to improve that, and I feel like
right.
that most leagues have handled it very, very well.
Yeah, I agree. There were some bumps along the way, but I think we can kind of look back on it and not, I don't know. I think it was handled fairly well, I would say. So, well, man, let's get into some sports news of the week. Where do you want to start? You want to get into Austin FC, a little La Zona Verde to get
Yeah,
this thing going?
let's jump into it.
Yeah, so we had two matches since the last show. Um, the first of which, Austin making the trip to Kansas City to play Sporting KC. That was that one was the gut punch. Like that was a disappointing match there. Gallagher gets the start. He gets a early goal in that match with another great assist from Stroud, who just continues to lock down that right side. But then the kind of, do you want to say the wheels fell off? Is that fair?
Yeah,
Is that a
yeah. I mean, it was held together with baling twine and Elmer's glue for a little while, and then it basically just it all came apart when the captain Alex Ring picked up his second yellow, earned his red card, and was sent off. And after that, it was really a matter of time. You could see it building. It was a matter of time before Sporting KC was able to make it happen. And sure enough, it couldn't hold them off with a man down. Stuver's playing on his head. I mean, he's doing everything that he can. But it was just too much. The attack was too much, and the defense was just a little shaky late in the game once they wore down. So, yeah, I mean, it was really to lose your captain, to lose your your rock in the middle, and really the thing that solidifies, the thing that brings the player that brings everything together for your club. To lose him at the end of that game, and then for that also to bleed over into the next match, which we'll hit on. But the Sporting KC loss was tough, but it's a team. Again, you're going to see these type of things with a team that's only played 5 or 6 times together against a team in a different color shirt. They're still learning how to finish matches against solid opponents.
right?
And Sporting KC found a way just to chip away, and then finish the deal. And they did it. So, hats off to them. Austin FC, it was one of those that you would have liked to see them hold on to keep a point, to get a point out of it. But to go down and to give up that second goal, it was tough.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then the following match after that was a chance to rebound after the KC loss, and this is another tough trip going to Los Angeles to play the Galaxy. I wouldn't call this one so much of a gut punch, would you? Like this is more, it was a 2-0 loss to LA. This probably could have been worse than 2-0, right?
Should have been, I think. Like
Yeah,
it was, but yeah, it wasn't really in question, to be honest. It was just it was a professional victory by the Galaxy, and it could have been worse. Again, Stuver saves
big
a penalty.
save. Yeah.
Yeah, Chicharito, who got a goal later on anyway. And I think he's leading MLS in goals right now. Or if he's not, he's up there. He's sort of having a bounce back season after a disappointing year last year, and LA was just too much for Austin FC, especially with Ring missing the game due to the red card the week before.
Right. Hector Jimenez was having a pretty good match early on in that one, filling in for Nick Lima, who I know you've been a little critical of Nick Lima the first few matches of the season. I think, especially in the KC match, right? I think he was kind of looking like a liability on that side. And so to have Jimenez come in, who looked like kind of his vintage self, and then gets injured and has to come off. Just another blow to this defense. After Sweat went out injured in the Colorado game, I think it was. And Komanich has been fine filling in there. He's been good, but like still the depth is getting tested on that back line. So it's an MCL strain for Jimenez. Hopefully it's not going to keep him out too long, but yeah, it's the depth is starting to get tested back there. I got a question for you on the Stuver thing and what he's done the last couple weeks. Is he kind of your MVP of this team after the first 5 games?
He is, absolutely. I think he has to be. It's not that there haven't been, Fagundes, Stroud. There's been Ring when he wasn't. It didn't seem like something was off that day. It just didn't feel like the same player that we saw even in the previous few matches. It was just something felt off. But Ring, I would have said, would have been up there for that recognition had he not had to miss a game and a match and a half. But for me, it's far and away Stuver has kept this, even the losses, has kept them respectable and has really played to a point where you feel like if once Austin FC's attack starts to be more consistent, get Ring back out there, get everything in the middle, get Pereira and him side by side again, linking up, working together. And, Stroud is, again, he's not going to give up that position out on the right side. Like
he sure doesn't look like
right?
he is. That sure looks like it's his at this point, unless he just has a real dip in form over a long stretch. Because it's going to take a lot more than like 1 bad match or 2 bad matches for Wolf to pull him out of the lineup at this point. So like, unless it turns into some kind of extended run where he just isn't producing at all. That right side is his completely.
Yeah. And we're seeing Josh Wolf's first real test as a manager here in terms of how managing this squad, managing a club with injuries, with substitutions, and he likes to use all of his substitutions. I've noticed that about him. He wants to use all 5 fresh bodies and get them on and try to just use them in the same role. I think he feels like a lot of these players are interchangeable in what they bring to the team, and you sort of see that with some of these substitution patterns that Wolf has. But he feels like, and it's a deep team. Are they a good team right now though? They looked good for a couple of matches there. Are they a really good club yet? Are they somebody that I trust to come together in a big spot? I don't know if they're there yet, but all the pieces are there. We've seen it happen. Now it's the consistent match after match after match, week after week after week. If you do have to have somebody come in and sub for an injury, how do they respond to that? Is there a drop off like we've seen recently? And can Alex Ring recover from this sort of, for me, it's embarrassing for the captain to be sent off, especially for a foul that really didn't need to happen. I don't know. I don't like to talk about a player like that, but it's sort of like that can't happen again.
Well,
he's got to be there.
Well, according to people that watched him quite a bit when he was with New York City FC, this is kind of his game. Like, this is kind of the player that he is. Like, this is one of the, like, that is the bad that we're going to have to take with Alex Ring, with the good of Alex Ring, and that he's a guy that plays on the edge. He's a guy that, if he gets that early yellow card, we've talked about this with Arsenal with like Granit Xhaka and guys like Mathieu Flamini, like years before. Like, it's these guys, they get the early yellow, you're like, oh no, it's just like you start ticking the clock down to when there's going to be a second yellow, because they don't adjust their game to that. They're going to continue to play at that edge, and that's what Alex Ring is.
Flamini, the legend. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just laughing. I love that guy. Like,
yeah,
what a legend.
But that's what I mean.
Arsenal legend.
When you play that like midfield general kind of enforcer box to box role, it's all gas, no brakes for Alex Ring. I mean, it is just not like and I think Wolf even said something about that. Like, he said something like, I wasn't going to take off our captain because of one yellow card. And that's just what we're going to, this is not going to be the last one from him. And I think that's kind of his reputation. You know, it's kind of like, well, if you get, I guess it was 3.5 really good matches out of him, and then you lose 1.5 because he gets sent off. It's kind of like, well, this is, just got to take it. But that's on Wolf to be able to adjust the system, find the players that can fill in for him whenever, just like with an injury, it's a next man up mentality. So
yeah, and if Pereira can keep developing, and because again, you see it with bits and pieces with him, you see it in these bursts of, okay, he's holding the ball up well, or he's making a nice turn, or he knows where his teammates are and is linking up. Like, you see it in spurts with him. You see why Austin FC are so high on him, why they drafted him with the #1 pick. It's not as consistent yet as it would need to be for him to totally take that role over. And I think that's sort of another reason why, if Ring is going to get sent off, he needs to earn that, in my book, like, because the fouls that he took, like the first one, okay, but the second yellow was just, it was an eye roller, because it was just like, dude, he didn't even have to come close to doing that, man. Like, come on. And I'd like to see this continued link between Pereira and Ring. And that was one of the most disappointing things about him missing for me, was I want them to, because Pereira's been nicked up, and now he's back in action now, and we'll see if, or he hasn't been starting, he hasn't been playing full matches since early on in the season. So I'd like to see that again with Ring coming back, give them a little bit of time to grow and see what comes from it. Because, the attack's there. I mean, even in defeat, like, the attack is there. You see it. There's some talent up front. And so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Nashville's up next. That's the trip that's awaiting Austin FC this weekend. Nashville's, I kind of think about this like with the Minnesota game, a team that was, pretty good last season. Nashville, their expansion year last year, like, they were decent, but this is a winnable game for Austin. Ring will be back. You mentioned Pereira getting back into action. Gallagher's in training this week, so hopefully he will be able to see some time. So really the only players if I might be missing somebody, but I'm thinking with Sweat, essentially his season's over, but Jimenez is going to spend some time out. Other than that, I think it might be a pretty full squad selection for Wolf. So this is a game that's winnable. This is one of the few Eastern Conference matchups that Austin has on the season, and should at least be able to get a point out of this and start straightening things out, because after that, it's a trip to Seattle, who are just absolutely destroying teams to open up this season. They're sitting atop the Western Conference, and that's going to be an interesting one, because then it heads to the international break, and it looks like, I think it's a week or two off for Austin before a return to Kansas City, and then the home opener against San Jose. So this is tough to go on the road this many matches in a row. But it looks like they're figuring it out. I don't know how you feel about this, Jay. I think you've mentioned kind of your thoughts with Wolf using his subs. I think I've kind of reached the point where I kind of trust in Wolf to make some good tactical decisions in lineup choices. He seems to have a decent feel for players that are on and off form a little bit. I know we talked about with Danny Houston not really producing, and then what do you know? Gallagher starts and gets a goal. The way that he stuck with Stroud after not starting him in the opening match, seeing what he was doing in limited minutes, and then giving Stroud basically the starting job. So I feel pretty good about the coaching staff making good decisions here. What do you think?
It feels like the subs that he is making aren't just like he's he's not necessarily changing tactics. He's just putting fresh legs out there to play their game. And that to me, like, of course, there are times when, okay, I'm going to take off an attacking player and bring on a defender or something like that specifically but Wolf doesn't seem to, it's hard to get him off of his game, of what he wants to do in his plan. And I mean that in a positive way. I don't mean that he's not flexible. I mean, like, his club is going to play a certain way, and they're going to try to dictate the flow of the game, not necessarily be a reactionary club. But Austin FC are going to play a very certain way, Josh Wolf style of, let's get it out there, let's run, we'll get a couple of long balls here and there, but let's get some long diagonal passes, get some crosses in the box, and let's run on it and score some goals. It's pretty, like, it's a simple formula if you have the right players for it. And injuries aside, Austin FC have the right players to do it. And I think we're a game or so away from an outburst of goal scoring from Austin FC. And there's not a better time to do it than against Nashville. So, it's sort of like, okay, you get Ring back, you get everything sort of back to normal. Hopefully Gallagher is back and can maybe give you 20 on the back or something like that. And you go put a whooping on them up there, score 4 goals or something like that, and feel good about yourself again, because that's the ideal situation here for a club in Austin FC's position. As you lose your opening match against betting favorite to win the league, and then you look really strong, get a couple of W's, get 3 points in some matches, and then you fall off again. So how do you respond to that? And you have to take advantages of these games in your schedule against opponents that you should, at least, like you said, Kerry, the expectation should at least go to get a point in Nashville.
Yeah.
And for Austin FC to really start to turn the corner, I feel like 3 points is a must, because, like you said, that Seattle match is going to be a tough one.
Absolutely. And one question that before we move on, with the summer transfer window coming up and Austin FC still with a designated player slot available, if you could fill one, basically, what positions should this club fill with that designated player role, given the opportunity this summer? Like, to you, in your mind, what is kind of the, I don't want to say glaring weakness or something, but what direction would you go with trying to strengthen this team with a big money signing in the summer?
I just think with the way that the depth is already being tested, I would look for a defender to be brought in. And I like what they bring in the attacking front. And if you're going to get Ring and Pereira to be able to stick around in the middle and link stuff up and work together and grow, I think that the wings are sort of interchangeable. For me, it's seeing what we see now. For me, it's a defender and probably in like a right back. I would say a right back, even to really solidify that side of the defense. That's where I would look. What are you thinking?
I like what Gallagher brings to the table. I like the idea of Danny Houston, but I think for me, it would be a proper number 9, a real striker. Like, if you're going to spend the money on a designated player, and it sounds like there's even the opportunity to pay down, however this works, MLS is nuts, but like be able to pay down Pochettino's contract to a non-designated player type. Apparently there's that possibility there, but anyway, to be able to spend big money on the third designated player, but like that would be it for me. I feel like, but yeah, it's hard to ignore that the defense. It really is. But if this team could get a real scoring threat up front to just take that, the other team's defensive mindset away from guys like Dominguez and Fagundes and Stroud, like be able to let those guys just, in Pochettino, let those guys just work because of the threat of a true goal scoring threat in the middle up front. It's hard to say no to that, but God, it's hard to not look at the defense and talk about this depth that we've been discussing and not feel like, but again, it's like, is that what you're going to, is that what you want to put your big money towards? If you're going to, I don't know. It's interesting to me. We'll see what they do because the
But
flexibility is there, and it's smart by Claudio Reyna, the way that they've built this roster to be able to go through this first part of the season into the summer and say like, okay, let's pinpoint this need now that we've actually seen what this team looks like on the pitch.
and I think it's very it would have to be the right defender. You can't. This has to be like a huge, like a home run. Like we're bringing in the heavy hitter to really and truly. Because I like the central defenders. I like I like what the central defenders. He's been awesome. Like that's been a bright spot for me. For like sort of an unexpected bonus at this point. Romagna's been really, really great in central defense. And it would have to be somebody though that you look at that at the signing and you're like, okay, that is the dude, like. But I think that there is there's a greater likelihood of that sort of reaction from a striker, especially the right striker.
Right.
But I guess it's harder to really hit that home run on your defense in that designated player spot, but it's doable, if it's the right guy. And it's that to me is where I would like to see some things short up. But again, the goal scoring, maybe that goal scoring outburst isn't coming, and maybe it's we're waiting. If Gallagher can stay healthy, then maybe we see it when if he gets a full a legit shot at regular minutes up there. But I could totally see where you're coming from. Either way, I think they need to address, those are the elephants in the room to me. Yeah, that either one I wouldn't be upset with, to be honest.
Well, here's a striker name that's been tossed around a little bit of potentially coming to MLS. And I want to get your opinion on this. How would you feel about Olivier Giroud coming to Austin?
Has he been linked to MLS talks? Is that right?
There has been links of him heading to MLS. So
I'd love to see that beautiful man in the Verde. I'm going to be really honest with you, man. I mean, good times at Arsenal. He's still playing in good form at Chelsea. I mean, I love the guy, that to me that's a great name. Do I want him to come in and be like the game changer every single week in and week out? I don't know if, I know the MLS isn't the Premier League, but I also don't know how much at this point in his career Giroud wants to do that. But again, like I know he's been putting in some good minutes with the club there, and I don't know what would you feel about Giroud?
I mean, I think it'd be great. I just think about the things that he, what he's really good at would fit really well with this team.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is like pie in the sky kind of thinking, and who knows? Like, I don't even know if this would even, but like, you just think we've talked about, we've discussed it in the past, like his hold up play. And you think about guys like Stroud, Dominguez, Pochettino, Fagundes, all these guys that can run. And I think that's where like the idea of Danny Houston, that's kind of the idea that they've had with him. A guy that is good in hold up play. He can get ahead on the ball in the box. But what if the qualities that player has is at the level of Giroud? I think it changes the team, because I think while the idea of Houston has been good, I understand what they're trying to do with him. The execution just hasn't been there with him. And that's where, look at someone like the way that Giroud plays, you go, God, that'd be perfect. You can just see it, those little Giroud flicks.
Oh man.
On a runner, coming through. You know, it's just
That's exciting stuff, man.
so.
I
You
mean,
know,
that
we'll
would be
see.
that'd be tremendous. I mean, I know he's still in good form. I know. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
coming from playing regular minutes at Chelsea
right.
to, I mean, it's not. I don't know, man. I feel I'm hesitant about some of these Premier League guys coming over to MLS, especially like right away, like what they bring to the table right away. And I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that he wouldn't. I'm not saying that Giroud wouldn't come over here and wouldn't slide right in, because, like you said, his skill set fits the style of play here. But it's also, I don't know, man. That would be a fast. Oh, that would be so fascinating, man. That would be what a name. What a name that would be
Yeah,
to
he'll
land
be
that,
all over the
man.
billboards around Austin.
Yeah, he would be.
Talk about a marketing tool. But like, well, we could go on this. I would say that about Giroud, but I do not. I don't know the way that Reina and the staff has built this team. I don't know if that's the direction they're trying to go. I don't think that they're looking to get the aging European player profile that clubs like that other MLS clubs have done. And you know, with like Higuain in Miami, and you've seen, you know, what the Galaxy have done over the years, getting players from the Premier League and from all, you know, Chicharito is one of those guys that have played in Europe for years and years. And, you know, he's a little bit
Mhm.
different. The Mexican players are a little bit different in terms of their profile here, but like it's, I just don't think that's the way that the club is trying to build. I think they're wanting to build a more of a profile in Central and South America, more of a youth development system, and kind of build more of a cohesive younger team than just bringing in a, you know, aging European superstar who, you know, disrupts the dynamic of the team. Because
Yeah.
for all of Giroud's positive qualities, I mean, he is, you know, he's a temperamental Frenchman. He's you know, there's all those things that come with it. He's won a World Cup. You bring him into a locker room and he's not playing in a city like New York or Miami or LA. Like, what's kind of the like dynamic there? And I don't know
And
if Reina and company
yes.
are looking at that type of profile. So
And that's exactly where I was going with the players coming in from the Premier. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly, man. Like that's exact. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. That's sort of that feeling that I get, man. It's like, what if it just doesn't go right? What if it comes in and it's something sour from the start, and then you set back a young locker room that's growing together and really learning how to be a team, how to be how to be a cohesive unit. But what if Austin FC is a magnificent, talented goal scorer away from immediately joining the
yeah,
upper tier of MLS?
right.
And because that's what the ceiling is of an Olivier Giroud on Austin FC, is he immediately puts them into the conversation. Like, they were already, after a couple of nice victories, I know there were some write-ups that sort of had Austin FC elevated in some rankings, and the
Yeah,
all those, some of those pieces that came out that, but it recognized the fact that they were playing well at the time, right? But like, to really be considered one of those teams that's going to be competing, because it's a tough conference. It's tough to even think about getting out of this conference, much less
right.
going to play for an MLS title. So, like, being able to I just lost my train of thought, man. I don't know how. It just is a big question mark there with how Giroud would fit into would fit into that locker room. And I don't know if it would be an exciting move for me. Obviously, I love the guy. I think it would be it would be super cool to have a guy of that talent. But you bring up a great point about the locker room and stuff like that. How do you move from there? So
Yeah, I mean, that's what all the rumors right now have. One of your favorite players, Willian from Arsenal, being linked to a move to Inter Miami, and as well as, and I have this one's a real long shot, but also Sergio Aguero, his contract's up at Manchester City, another guy that's been mentioned with a potential trip to Miami. And you start thinking about like, okay, how many of those kinds of personalities? I know Beckham owns the club and all those kinds of things. Like we've seen what Willian's done at Arsenal this season. What is he going to do when he comes to MLS and is in Miami? Like you talk
yeah, no
about like
kidding.
total lack of production. I mean, I know it's a drop off going from the Premier League to MLS, but like it's
Yeah, I wouldn't go anywhere near that guy, to be honest with you. Like, it's just an effort thing for me. It's pretty frustrating player to watch. And we're taping this when we're taping this. Arsenal match just started. I don't know. I don't even know if he's in the lineup today, but I'm sure he'll find some way to to upset me while I find a way to watch that match. But I don't know. I wouldn't go anywhere near that. The Miami thing, I did see that come out today about Willian, and I just laughed because of course, who wouldn't want to go to Miami, But I don't know. I'm hesitant. Like I said, I'm hesitant for those Premier League guys coming over. What you're going to get from them? So I don't. It's
well,
definitely a coin flip, especially Willian. Like I like Willian, like Aguero. He would probably want to. I don't know. That guy is just a nasty competitor. Like he would want to come down and just wreak as much havoc as he could. I feel like I don't know if you would get that out of Willian.
No. I think Aguero's heading to Barcelona, but that's him and Messi are close. I think but basically to kind of tie it all up on this, we're kind of discussing the two different ways of building a roster in MLS that we've seen over the years. There's the Miami route, which we're seeing, which teams have kind of done to varying degrees over the years, and the route that Austin's been taking. And if you look at kind of who's been winning MLS championships, it's kind of the Austin FC route that seems to be the one that ends up with titles. And that's where I know the Galaxy have won championships, but we talk about like Thierry Henry with New York, where there's these varying degrees of success, and that's why it's like, okay, if they want to build a superstar club in Miami, go for it. They're going to sell a lot of shirts, all those kinds of things. But I think I would prefer the Austin FC approach that they're doing. Build this thing, make it cohesive, and have a system in place, and let's go win. So
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's move on. Let's talk some Longhorns. We got a little bit of a Runnin Horns update. I mean, not a huge one. I honestly am kind of surprised. I thought there'd be more roster building news over these last couple weeks to announce, but there hasn't really been. But with that list that we've been talking about for a few weeks of players that we were wondering if they would come back to Texas or not is starting to get shorter. Jay, what do you got? Greg Brown declared for the NBA. Where do you see him going? Not maybe, I mean, like in terms of his draft stock, like not like what team do you think he's going to go to? But
yeah, the guy's obviously super talented. Like the ability is there, the ceiling is off the chart. Are you going to get a guy that's going, because it's going to take some time to develop him to an NBA game. Are you willing to put in, to invest time in a guy that you don't know? I don't think he's going to come on and be an NBA player right away. Like he's not going to be somebody that if you take him, you're needing your first round pick to be an immediate impact. He's a guy that for me, it's almost like you're taking him, and I don't even know if he'll be a first rounder, man. Like if he would be, it would be to me with the understanding that he's a developmental project going to a good team which to me, that's the best case scenario for him, would be to just get drafted towards the end of the first round by a good franchise and be around good players and develop, because I just don't think he's an instant impact type of first round player at this point. But somebody's going to take a shot on him because the ceiling is so high.
Yeah, he'll get a shot. I think everything you're saying though is just a straight indictment on his development during his season at Texas. I mean, this was a guy that was coming in with the highest of accolades, and he wasn't developed. And this was a projected one and done, at least a first rounder, at least.
Mm-hmm.
After one season at Texas. And here we are talking about him like, this is a guy that's like, okay, it's a coaching change and like he doesn't want to go anywhere else, but he's going to go pro. And, instead of talking about him as a one and done type talent. And to me, that's just, I think it says a lot about the lack of development for him during his year at Texas. Whichever direction you want to put that, whether it's on, on him, on Shaka Smart's coaching staff, the results just weren't there when it came time for him to go pro.
And I'm not accusing Greg Brown of anything here. I'm just,
no.
I think that I think he has to take some responsibility for the type of season that he had. I think Greg Brown has to take responsibility for the fact that he would show up for 6 or 7 minutes a game at the end of the season and not play ever in the second half. I think that's one of the things that bothers me the most, is that there was a player of that ability that there wasn't even an attempt to let him contribute to your team in crucial times.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know. It makes me feel a little bit, it would make me feel hesitant about taking him if I felt like I don't know. Is he fully invested in it? Like, did he realize like, man, like I shouldn't have come to Texas. I should have gone to the G League and made $500,000 or 350 or whatever they're paying like the top flight guys out of high school to play on that like what amounts to like a select team in the G League. And maybe he regretted that, and maybe just wasn't the right fit for him. And he told Shaka like, hey, like, I'm going to be honest with you. I really would rather shut it down and just prepare for the NBA, because I'm not into but I'm not accusing him of that. I'm not saying that was the case, but it's just a lot of different ways to take him not playing much, him not contributing at all down the stretch last year.
Right.
It's a weird situation for me. And maybe I shouldn't speculate like that. I just feel like there's something going on there that makes me hesitant to take him, even though this, like I said, the ceiling is through the roof. You see the athleticism, the length. It's all the ingredients are there.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what, regardless, and that's the whole thing. Regardless, like it just at the end of the day, the results weren't there. We're not in the locker room, we're not in the practice gym, like any of those kinds of things. And that's where it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for him. I think, like you said, the talent, the potential is through the roof with him. But so hopefully he lands in a great spot. So, but yeah, just an interesting one. I know you were thinking that he would be one of the more likelier ones to come back, given those kind of circumstances with a new coaching staff that might be able to, at least would pitch to him that they would be able to further develop him and get him into that first round, if not the higher end of the first round, after one more year with him. But that's not going to be the case. So, yeah. So what do we got on Jericho Sims? That's another name that actually the last name of the kind of four players that we had been discussing, because Ramey's coming back, Coleman's going pro, Brown is going pro, Sims is going pro.
Yeah, he's declared for the draft, but hasn't hired an agent. So he's sort of dipping his toe in, but can still pull it back out if he doesn't like doesn't like the vibe that he gets from team saying, oh yeah, we're we're going to look at you maybe we look at you as a second round guy, or, hey, we're not going to draft you, but we'll bring you into camp, or maybe he wants to come back. For me, I think he's gone, because there's going to be some teams that fall in love with that skill set, and I think somebody's going to get a steal of a guy that's just going to be a consistent player on your roster, give you, 15 to 18, maybe 20 minutes a night, of just running up and down the floor, playing good defense, rebounding the basketball, can play above the rim. I just think that he's what the NBA has evolved into, like his skill set and his being a big that can run like that and play above the rim, but also still does the traditional big man stuff, like play defense and get rebounds. Like, there's a place for that in the NBA right now. And I just feel like somebody would find a way to use him, and get the most out of him in an NBA setting. But he may come back. He loves to play, just loves to play. And if Beard, it would be probably Beard's best recruiting, job if he got a Sims to come back. And regardless, I know this is Sims. I don't think that Chris Beard could talk him out of it if he decided he wanted to go pro. But I just think I'm so high on his ability and what his future could be at the NBA level in the right spot.
Absolutely. On that note about kind of Beard recruiting him, the flip side of that, my question for you is, what type of feedback would Jericho Sims need? I don't want to say it like this, like need to receive, but like, what feedback would cause Jericho Sims to come back to Texas? Because you mentioned like a team might sit down with them and say, hey, we project you as like a second rounder. I feel pretty comfortable thinking that would be enough for him to go, I'm sticking with this, I'm going pro. Or if a team says, we'll bring you into camp. We don't know if you're going to get drafted, but like, we'll bring you into camp and give you a look. Is that kind of like lukewarm response from teams if he starts hearing that from a few different franchises? Is that something that'll make him go, all right, maybe one more year of development with a different coaching staff might be worth, doing? So I guess in your mind, what is that kind of, what would he need to hear one way or the other to kind of solidify this decision and hire an agent or not?
I mean, I would only think it would be if people told him, like, look, you're not an NBA player. Like, we might put you on a G League contract and see if you could do something, but I don't think you're an NBA player right now. I think that's what he would have to hear. I don't know. I don't see him hearing that news. I feel like
I agree.
he's as good as gone. But that to me would have to be and that's not even if he wouldn't want to go play in Europe. I mean, because again, the guys with his size and his skill set are not grown on trees. So there's a place for him in professional basketball. It's just a matter of when and where. So I think he would have to totally hear, like, you're not an NBA player. You're not ready. You need to put on muscle. You need to do this, which is, I watch Jackson Hayes play in the NBA every night, and I'm like, man, does that dude eat? Like, he's not like Bones, but like, you just look at him and that's just his frame. I know he's a kid, but like, I'm thinking, okay, if Jackson Hayes is an NBA player, Jericho Sims is an NBA player then.
Right.
Like that to me, that's the comp, to be honest. I mean, in terms of this, the high fly can block shots, can get you some rebounds, but might want to. And I think Sims is bigger than Hayes. So I mean, like,
I think he
I don't
is.
know. I just think that Sims is NBA ready in the right system. So I don't know. It would take him to totally just say you're not an NBA player, I guess, for him to not go through. To me, that's what it would take.
I agree. That's why the not hiring an agent thing is kind of fascinating to me. Like, it's almost that kind of thing. Like, if maybe he isn't completely sold on the idea of going pro yet. Not so much what the feedback is, but maybe in his mind, it's kind of like maybe he doesn't know whether he wants to truly, go pro or come back to Texas. So, because I think if the feedback he's going to get is going to be enough for, to say like go pro,
Yeah.
but we'll see. I mean, I know this happens all the time where the players declare they don't hire an agent immediately, they wait. So, but yeah, I think he's probably gone. But on what else do we got on the 40 acres this week? Sluggin Horns,
Oh
some
yeah.
baseball. Um, what a series against TCU. I know the last time we met, we discussed kind of that series against Tech, not the result Texas wanted, heading into this like brutal stretch to kind of, you know, lock down the Big 12 regular season. But then they go to TCU and get just an absolutely huge series win against the Horned Frogs up there. And then a lot of the teams in front of Texas in the national rankings decided to start losing a bunch of games. And now all of a sudden the Longhorns are up to number 2 in the nation.
Yeah.
And with a chance with this series against West Virginia coming up this weekend, to get ahead of TCU and win the Big 12 regular season title and really look at being one of the highest seeds in the country heading into postseason play. We were supposed to have some baseball yesterday due to the weather here. The Rice game was canceled, but so really, I think the series against West Virginia is starting tomorrow, right? Like it's going to be a Thursday.
Right.
So, Jay, how you feeling about this team? I know it's kind of here we are. They got through that kind of stretch of the Oklahoma State and Tech and TCU series, and some good tests along the way, and here we are at the final regular season series. How are you feeling about this team heading into the weekend and into the Big 12 tournament?
Yeah, playing some really good baseball. To go up and lose that series against Texas Tech was definitely not what you wanted to see. But to lose at home to Tech, to lose that series at home to Tech was not what you wanted to see. But then to be able to go to TCU, and the Horns have found, like, we used to talk about if there was an issue, it was like the Sunday
pitching,
Sunday pitching, right? Well, with Pete Hansen sliding into that role now and doing a really, really nice job on Sunday, like Ty Madden, Tristan Stevens, and Pete Hansen, 1, 2, 3, like that's tough. That is a tough out in any sort of setting, period. So I mean, that's, to me, I feel that's why I feel the best about Texas, because when you get into postseason play, good pitching usually outperforms good hitting, I guess. If you got good pitching rolling, then in the postseason, that's a recipe for success. Now Texas just happens to have a lot of stuff rolling right now with the pitching and the bats going, but they are coming up against a West Virginia team that's playing their best baseball of the season, coming off 5 straight wins now, and they've got a guy that's coming off of a week, Austin Davis, where he was on Sports Center twice, making great plays in the outfield, and he had 10 hits last week in those wins. So like they're playing well. West Virginia's probably playing their best baseball of the season. They're under 500 for the season, but like I said, won their last 5 straight and playing some good ball. So it's a good test for the Longhorns, and I'm glad that West Virginia's playing well, because it's like a reminder not to let your guard down, because you can play against a West Virginia team here, and if you let your guard down, all of a sudden you let one slip that you shouldn't have, and then you're second guessing yourself sort of going into postseason play. So I anticipate them to take care of business, but I'm feeling pretty good about the Longhorns' chances right now of making a deep run in the postseason. What are your feelings about the little Sluggin Horns right now?
It feels good. I mean, if you were to interchange the Tech and the TCU series results, if you kind of say like, okay, well, you're going to lose one of those series, which one is it going to be? I prefer it to play out the way that it played out. I know you don't want to lose at home or lose a series at home to Tech, but then to go on the road to TCU and get that big series win there. I'd prefer that than beating Tech and then going and losing to TCU, because now where this team might be feeling a little down on themselves, and I think the point you make about West Virginia playing good ball right now is big, because I don't have the standings right here in front of me, but I think the Longhorns are pretty safe in that at least the number 2 seed in the Big 12. So kind of, you go into this series that, okay, if you sweep West Virginia and some results go your way, you leapfrog TCU and you win the Big 12 regular season title. But then also in the back of your mind, there's that like, okay, well, if we drop 2 or 3 to West Virginia, we're still the number 2 seed in the Big 12, and like it doesn't really change a whole lot. Those are the kind of things that worry me a little bit, and that's why West Virginia playing good ball, I think, is important. Because if this was a team that was just like West Virginia's just packed it in for the season, like, they've been getting hammered, they just have given up, that would concern me a little bit, because Texas would be feeling pretty good about like, all right, well, if we drop 2 or 3 here, we're still in the same seeding that we are, but then they're going into the Big 12 tournament without momentum, which is an illusion, but that's a different story. But like, so it's going to give Coach Pierce a lot of material to work with getting these guys motivated for this final series. As if there's not already enough on the line. Like, you're number 2 seed in the country, a chance to win the Big 12. He shouldn't have any problem motivating them, but still, they're humans out there. And to have that in the back of your mind about like, I'm going to exert that extra little bit when you go, oh, well, if we lose, it doesn't really damage our standing in a way. That kind of.
Yeah, I don't
see it, but.
Right, but you're right. That could be a concern. But when you've got like Antico, Daly, Zubia, Melendez, and they're at the top of the lineup is just, it's almost like you get out there and Madden goes out there and 3 up, 3 down, and then the bats come alive. Right, I almost feel like this is one of those series where set the tone early on Friday and don't take your foot off the gas. And I feel like Texas knows and understands the gravity of this moment, and, locking down that super regional top 8. I mean, I feel like it would take a lot. They would have to just totally fall apart to lose that super regional, in my opinion.
There's so many, like, and that's what, we saw it with the nature of Texas jumping up to number 2 in the country. The kind of interchanging of these top 10 teams that are in there, which include, we were talking about TCU in that mix a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And, you drop 2 or 3 to West Virginia, and then you have a bad showing at the Big 12 tournament. That might be enough with how many good teams there are this year. That might be enough to fall out of the top 8. So there is a lot at risk, and there is a lot to play for still. They'd have to look pretty bad doing that, but TCU, they lost, what was it, to Louisiana Lafayette this week or last week, whatever it was. And that was enough to sure drop them down. And so.
Having a Wally attack over here. Wally boy, come here.
Wally's getting on us for being.
Yeah, there you go. There's the boy.
There we go, Wally.
Hey, buddy.
I don't think Wally's too concerned about Texas versus West Virginia this weekend. What do you?
I don't think so either, and I don't think we should be. I don't think we should be either. I think the ones are going to take care of business.
Well, man, I think that's probably about it for this week, man. This is a good show, good catch-up show. We get back in the routine, and yeah, man. Anything else we got going on, or?
No, man. Let's just enjoy the week. Stay dry out there, everybody. If you're in Central Texas, stay dry. And there you go. Sit down. All right. Well, he's done, and so are we. Thanks for listening. Welcome.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
ATX representing. Fatal, baby.